Awesome. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining the conversation today. I'm excited to be here with Bria Starmer, who is the founder of the company Lions and Tigers. And our topic today is going to be courage at work. And what I want to do today is explore how we can throw out the traditional full-time working model to really pursue economic empowerment for women. And we're going to dive into the details on how Bria's company is doing that today with many organizations. My name is Kelly Hoppish, and I'm the Director of Sales at the Mom Project. And the Mom Project is a technology platform that really empowers working parents, moms, dads, allies, throughout their entire career journey. And really what our mission is and what the company was predicated on is this foundation of parents not having to choose between being a paid professional in the workplace, but also, caring, loving, and present parent. And we're lucky to work with companies all over the US that are really driving towards that movement. And the reason that the Mom Project and Lions and Tigers are here today to collaborate on this conversation is this mission is just so big. Lions and Tigers is a future of work consultancy, and they provide strategic operations and marketing consulting and coaching in a flex model. But Bria, I'll let you share a little bit more about that in just a moment. And really today, what we're hoping to do is just showcase the shared mission of both of our companies. We really want to empower one another, but also empower all of the women and the organizations that are out there during this crazy COVID time to really create the change that we need in the workplace today. So with all of that said, Bria, I'd love to kick it over to you to really share some of the backstory about what's brought you to this career journey.
Thanks, Kelly. I'm so excited. I'm such a Mom Project fan. So I just feel so delighted to be with you today. Thanks for having this important discussion. Yes, I am the founder of Lions and Tigers, but I'm also a mom to two boys. I've got a 4.5-year-old and a 1.5-year-old, and I've got a little girl on the way this December. So I'm pregnant in a pandemic and running this beautiful business. So all sorts of complications and beauty in this season for me. To your point, yes, this whole idea that we have to choose between work and life is such a distraction from the kind of purpose-driven work that people are able to do if we think about our workplaces in a different way. And so this is why I love talking with you today, Kelly, because we share such a mission around empowering this empathetic and authentic future that we want to build, especially in these workplaces for parents. So where this started for me is that I was working at a startup after a long career of professional services and enterprise tech and a number of different career paths I had taken. And at that startup, I was laid off 7 months pregnant. And it was the right decision for the company, bad decision for me. And it was just such a tough day and a tough moment. I was preparing for my first child to be born. And so I really was thrown into this place that was my greatest fear, which was the fact that I was unhireable. And I faced significant discrimination during that time. I was excluded from the workforce. And so I really didn't have many choices. And so I was very lucky enough to be able to say to a few folks, and bold enough to say, well, will you hire me as a consultant then? And a few people said yes, luckily. And so I hustled and I worked 60 hours a week for my whole third trimester to save enough money for a self-funded maternity leave. And so it was just this moment of fear and insecurity and vulnerability after a career I felt really proud of, where I had made a lot of impact. And so after I had my son, I sort of recovered a little bit. I came back as a consultant 25 hours a week, doing really beautiful work. And I loved it. So I just started to do that more and more and take on clients and really figured out this whole consulting thing and how perfect it was for my life. And then, Kelly, there was one day where I was sitting with my son. He's a little over 2, and we were just sitting there, and he was taking a nap, and he was laying on me. And I remember just feeling like this immense sense of gratitude that I had built this life that I was so proud of from a place of a really low point in my career. And I had this balance, I had achieved the balance that I was looking for. And so I felt really compelled to share this and figure out a model for other working parents, especially, and other passion seekers. And so I decided to scale and build Lions and Tigers. And that's the mission we've been on for 2 years. And so I have been so privileged to watch Mom Project also go after and help and enable the same kind of workforce through really deep partnerships. So I just think there's so much synergy between the work that we're both doing to try to change this workforce.
Yeah, that's amazing. What a story. And how incredible to build that balance for you and your family. And I think that's what we're really driving towards, is that balance. I'll use air quotes since we're on video.
Sure.
It's different for everyone. And what's so interesting is the Mom Project was founded by Allison Robinson when she was on maternity leave. So we don't have children, and I don't know how you moms do it, building these businesses with these babies, but I'm a big fan. So really incredible work that you've done. So how is Lions and Tigers operating today in this moment versus where you started when you were a consultant and you were just starting to scale?
When we started this business, it was really about strategic staffing. So we would take traditional staffing or management consulting roles and we'd break them apart and make them more accessible and more flexible. And we still do that today. We lighten the load of organizations. But what happened once we got in and started working with brands, and we really do something a little bit more magical in that we root a lot of our work in business impact and people's careers, our clients' careers. We almost think of that first before we even start working on our white papers or our operations tasks. And so what happened then, Kelly, like in the last 6 months, I mean, with pandemic, with a quarter of Americans being unemployed, we started moving into agile strategic planning. So how is everyone making decisions, which is now not 3 years anymore, it's now 3 months or 3 weeks sometimes. So yeah. We came alongside organizations to help them with that decision-making modeling. And then recently, because Lions and Tigers is a fully virtual workforce that employs a lot of parents, our clients have been asking us, how have we learned how to enable and support this unique group of talent? And so now we've moved into this future of work consulting, which helps businesses future-proof their staff and their workforce to try to enable retention, inclusion, some of these really important variables that brands are really thinking about in this current world of work in preparation for the future of work. So our brand has evolved really quickly to come alongside workplaces as they've changed.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're reading all these articles that show that women are so disproportionately affected during this pandemic. And really, our organization is almost devastated in reading the percentages of women that are going to potentially be leaving the workforce. So I'd love for you to share maybe just a little bit more deeply how you're supporting that retention and working with companies to hold on to that female talent throughout the next couple of months, especially with virtual learning and schools. Who knows what's happening with schools, if you don't mind.
Of course, it's so hard. I have a member of my team, her name is Brenda. She worked at a large tech enterprise as a product manager. She's a very successful and gifted product manager. She was one of 85 people on this product management team. And there were 2 women and 1 parent in that group of 85. And so she just never felt that anyone got her, that when she needed to leave at 4 o'clock to get her kid to soccer, that there was acceptance for that. And so Brenda was making the tough decision of walking out of that building. And we would have lost her from the workforce. But we were able to grab her. We put her into a 20-hour-a-week consulting role, leading a very big product into market in the CRM space. And she's had tremendous impact. And her son is able to see her, much more than she had before. And so it's just an example of one of the ways that brands can think about keeping an inclusive workforce with these really high impact women. Now that's thinking about the outsource angle. We still have all of the talent and retention we need to do with the workforce of W-2 employees that they have in their building. And so right now we're spending a ton of time doing coaching for people. We do a bunch of EQ coaching and boundary setting and, leading authentic, fearless lives. Like we are really coming alongside giving skilling, soft skilling to this group of folks. We also, uniquely at Lions and Tigers, we have spent a ton of time understanding how to build remote virtual communities. And so we are teaching our clients a lot about this really core value of ours around intentional community and how you use tools like Microsoft Teams or Slack or others to really bridge and build these important moments for staff that need to still come together, that still want to share and collaborate, but we may need to work asynchronously right now. So there's just a lot of enablement happening, and trying to dissect the way in which a company's culture is, how it was, and then what it could be. So that's kind of the bridge that we're working on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. I love the coaching aspects. I think women especially really just sometimes need that extra push to have their voice heard and know that it's okay. Because I think we get in this moment where we want to feel grateful for what we have, and certainly it's an impactful way to live your life. But there's no need to shy away from having some of these tough conversations and speaking up for what you need, especially when your family's depending on that. So I think that's great. And what's interesting, we have a research and insights arm of our business called Work Labs, and we've done some studies to understand what women want in the workplace. And obviously flexibility is big, but the number 2 is respect. Like if Brenda needs to leave at 4:00, she doesn't need to say like, I'm feeling sick, I need to go. It's no, I'm leaving at 4:00 to go get my son or daughter and take them to soccer practice or do whatever it is that you need to do, and really just show up as a parent. So I love that you guys are taking that a step further to really empower these women to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and one thing that we're actually building today is we're building a flexibility contract into the way that we work. So when we onboard a new client and a consultant, we have them actually come to shared terms about what flexibility needs. Work Labs was one of the first to kind of build this Flexiverse that gives this great model for what are some of the kinds of flexibility models that we want to employ. And so we use a lot of those tools internally to say, okay, great. Well, this person wants to work part-time. This person wants to work in shifts. This person wants to be able to work remote. And so we identify all of the ways in which someone wants to work. And we never ask anyone to apologize for that. I mean, this is such a strategic advantage that we get to have that talent on their terms. I feel so lucky for it. And so we that clients also feel that same kind of flexibility, and some of them are taking that flexibility contract and using it with their managers.
Oh,
so
cool.
That kind of shared agreement and shared language is really critical to coming to consensus, especially in a client services business.
Absolutely. Oh, that's incredible. And I'm glad that we were able to provide some support to that. That's really neat to see.
For sure.
Okay, so I want to shift gears just a little bit and talk like current state, right? We're all kind of going through this madness that is 2020 and COVID. What are some of the biggest work-related challenges that you see as a woman with this current pandemic?
I mean, I'm pregnant in a pandemic, so I have maybe a unique perspective there. It's such an interesting time to parent children. The uniqueness of right now, especially as a woman founder who loves to work, is that in the past, I've been able to use childcare to enable me to go and work and scale. Now, the decision for many families is do I have access to childcare? And 2, if I'm willing to put my kids in childcare, what health risk am I willing to take on if I put them in childcare or if I put them in school? So this idea that asking people to risk their health in order to continue to work is an equation we've never had to do before. And I'm considered high risk as a pregnant woman right now. So then there's all of that too. But Kelly, I had a friend say to me the other day, she said, Bria, I can't work right now. I have to stay home with my 2 kids. She's a really impactful author and speaker. She said, I need you to keep working because I need people like you advocating for me so that when I'm ready, I can come back to the workforce.
Wow, that gave me chills.
That's
a burden, not burden, but it's big. That's really
an incredible responsibility. Yes. And so I need my family system to be able to be set up so that I'm able to continue advocating for this kind of work and this kind of transformation. So the equations have just changed so much and the decisions are so quick and they have to be made over and over and over again. And oftentimes, to your point, women are shouldering that burden more than men. Now, in my family, it's a different dynamic. My husband is actually the lead parent in my family. And I say lead parent, like he handles most of the logistics. Yep. I still handle the shoes, but there's still a balance there. But I'm very fortunate that a partnership in my life is really strong. And not everyone has a partnership to be able to navigate these times. Yeah. So losing women from the workforce, having to make these kind of healthcare choices in order to continue working. These are all really big systemic challenges that women and working parents are facing right now.
Yeah, and the guilt, I think, that comes from making some of those decisions. I can't even imagine. I'm the friend that shows up with a glass of wine to my neighbor's house. I'm like, I know you had to decide how to virtual learn today. How can I help you?
Yes, and as we approach fall, I mean, the equation is so drastic. I mean, and we're seeing some workplaces start to lean into what that flexibility will look like, but I honestly think everyone's just going to get smacked in September.
Yeah.
Everyone's just going to get surprised. We have a few clients that we work with that actually offer some fairly generous benefits to their staff, but folks aren't taking it. There is actually a culture of fear as a parent to show up and look less than, because you need to go and take care of your family or homeschool, that you would be perceived as not showing up as an effective employee. And I guess I would challenge that from the start to say, what is impact measured by? Is it hours or is it out?
Yeah, that's a really great point. So what are some of the other things that you've done to address these challenges, both in your work or maybe at home, knowing that there are so many?
For sure. I've been so lucky running Lions and Tigers that we've basically had a lab for the last 2.5 years to understand how remote and flexible work can work for people. In our community, we're 75% women, 77% parents, and the average number of hours that a person works for me is 30 hours a week. So we've got people that range anywhere from 5 hours a week up to full time, just like the Mom Project enables these kinds of really great workplace opportunities. So I've been learning from this group for a long time, kind of spotting what's working and what's not. And what we've done in the last 6 months is we have doubled down on this idea of fearless authenticity. And so by that, I mean that we remind people over and over that where they show up here and how they show up in pajamas or whatever it is, or with kids and dogs running in the background, that it's okay. And that is the first place that we come from to build trust and strength, because I need them to feel their best when they go and help and serve our clients.
Yeah.
Now, at the same time, we're taking what we've learned here and we're applying it to our client work. And so we're coming alongside brands and we're helping them audit the way in which they work today. So doing some culture audits, understanding their work health index, how people are feeling and performing today. We help do the change management work associated with the kind of gap filling that needs to happen. So that looks like rhythm of business, these kind of operational elements, internal communications, culture building. And then we help them build this intentional community, this really purposeful way in which that they can work. And we shift their equation from hours to impact. And that's the kind of workplace transformation that brands are making right now so that they can stay best in class. Because we all know that the war for talent is fierce, and we're going to have some serious retention issues. Brands, it costs them $50,000 to $100,000 to replace an employee. So the business cost, the business impact of not enabling this kind of work is actually very real.
It's huge. Yeah, we've actually done some studies with our community. We're up to about 300,000 members registered on our platform today, which is incredible.
Yes.
And over 80% of the women that are registered on our site would leave their current role for another company that provides some of that thoughtfulness and flexibility and support and respect, which is really, really crazy to think. And I think companies are starting to understand the business case for that. I think it's always a nice thing to support parents, but there is true business impact to creating these retention strategies, which is really incredible.
Not to mention that the inclusion of women in leadership, of course, we see all of the correlation to bottom line impact when you have an inclusive and a diverse set of leaders within an organization. And this is the number one risk to businesses right now, is losing their female workforce.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thinking about all of that, applying a growth mindset, where do we go from here? I know that we're making decisions in 3-month increments, but what are some thoughts on how we can proceed?
There's a few trends that we can look towards to give us a little sense of the future here. The first is what I think of as this great talent reset. Prior to the pandemic, we saw stats that looked like predictions of Americans moving towards freelance to the tune of nearly 50% of America by 2027. Now, I would guess that we're on a much faster clip towards people moving towards freelance by choice. And freelance is a lot of different things, of course. It's consulting, it's MLM, it's like all these, the ways in which someone would have, or the gig economy would be an entrepreneur in their own right. So I think that we will continue to see that trend manifest in many ways. The other is that we are now in the middle of an experiment of flexibility. Many of the beliefs and the fears that we had in 2019 do not exist anymore. The many brands that we worked with in 2019 that said this job can't be done remotely, now we have proven that it can be done remotely. And so we now have a new standard for flexibility that has been brought about.
Yeah.
The other trend that I'm so encouraged by is this idea that diversity, equity, inclusion would be a core strategy of businesses moving forward. The kind of social justice work happening right now to ensure that our businesses represent the kind of customers that they want to attract means that we have the chance to ask for and fight for the kind of workplace that feels like who we all are. So that is another trend that I'm so encouraged by.
Absolutely.
The last thing I would say too, and one thing that the Mom Project enables so much, is that really entrepreneurship is really a click away. So in the past, my dad was an entrepreneur. He started a neighborhood pub in the 70s. And for him to set up a business, there was a lot of capital investment. He had to sign a lease. He had to hire some employees. And, it was just a very different environment. Whereas now someone could stand up a consulting practice like I did overnight. I got my LLC for $200 at 11 o'clock at night, the night before I took my gig. So you can stand up a business so easily now, or accept a project and go off and start a career you previously couldn't have accessed. So these trends really help us feel confident about this future of work.
Absolutely. That's awesome. I feel like we're going to have to take that conversation offline. I need to hear more about this pub.
Yeah, it was called the Rainy City here in Seattle, which is appropriate.
That's amazing. No, those are really great tips. And shifting from the professional world, at home, how are you thinking about challenges being a female leader, but really taking care of your home life and your kids, getting into virtual learning and all the craziness that will come this fall?
This has been one of the upsides of the pandemic, is that I have gotten more time with my kids than I ever had before. Before the pandemic, I saw my kids 90 minutes a day of awake time. So that meant that 93% of my work week was spent without my children. And now, I'm doing this interview in my pajama pants with a big pregnant belly, and they're, I'm going to get to see them for many hours today. And so the dynamic has shifted so much, where it feels like families have been recentered. I kind of joke that we now are kind of back to this kitchen table that we didn't have before, which is also serving as a school room and a boardroom for many of us.
Yeah.
So that the physical environment has changed so much. I think we're all surviving in our own ways. For me, I'm very grateful for a really wonderful partnership with my husband. We met at a frat party in college, and I thought he'd be a good dad, and I bet right when I was 19. But not everyone has that kind of partnership, right? So I'm very lucky that I've got some access to childcare, and I've got access to a really strong partner, and that enables me to keep going. For many women and mothers and parents, they're having their own equations. They're trying to figure out, how do I access the kind of childcare that, will help enable me to either continue working or to have this impact that I really passionately seek. And there are tools out there. I'm seeing these really amazing pods start up for all these virtual learning experiences. I've been really impressed by the team at Weekdays, who are building micro schools and learning environments and standing them up overnight in neighborhoods. It's amazing. And so the kind of innovation we're seeing in the learning space right now is really pretty impressive. Now, it's not to say that it's not going to be burdensome or stressful, but the opportunity that we have to spend time as a family, I think, is a really great value that we're getting right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to be mindful of time, but one question that I have as I'm thinking about all of this, that's come up with my clients and with people I work with in this industry. How do you have some of these vulnerable conversations? Do you have any tips on how to? Because sometimes it can be uncomfortable. I mean, you're looking at my office in my home. I'm looking right into your home. Like we're sharing so much more of ourselves today than we ever have before, and sometimes that can be a little bit scary. Do you have any thoughts or recommendations on how to have those conversations in an empathetic way?
I think the wonderful thing right now to embrace is this idea and the study of empathy, because we're all in a collective grieving time. Like we are all going through this shared experience. I've had someone describe this as we're all on the same ocean, but we have different boats.
Yeah.
And so I think if you really understand that the person on the other side is wearing pajama pants, like there's something that makes it a
Like
little
picture
easier.
everybody in their underwear.
Exactly. Like literally now that actually might be happening.
Yeah.
So there's something about just understanding that people are all feeling this way that makes it a little bit easier. It kind of speaks to this imposter syndrome idea too, that there are these moments where we all face fear, where we all have grief, and maybe today you'll get the chance to be the bright spot in somebody's day. And so that's how I generally approach it. I generally try to assume that the other person has some grief and trauma going on, and therefore maybe, just maybe, I can add a little bit of light to their day.
Absolutely. And giving people that grace, I think, before times, we were just moving so quickly, or at least in my life, I was moving so quickly and it was getting on planes and it was traveling and working and family. And now it's just, we have a little bit more time to reflect. And I am so blessed to have the opportunity to talk to amazing women like yourself and others that I work with every single day. And there's just so much positivity that's out there. We just kind of need to keep our eyes open to it. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where community comes in. So it's so important right now that you identify and build the kind of support structure that you need. And for me, a lot of that's been digital. I've really valued the kind of, female centric or parent centric or entrepreneur centric, this different kind of modality to get that in, which I didn't ever get before.
yeah, absolutely. Any other last thoughts or things that you want to put out there into the universe today, Bria?
I guess I would encourage that everyone should keep working in the way that they want to keep working, just like I have been called, because we need all of you. I mean, we need everyone's participation in this moment right now. So I would encourage people to reach deep down and find and address that fears that they have so that they can go after the life that they really deserve.
Absolutely. So wonderful. Thank you so much for all of your dedication and work towards this mission. I encourage you to check out Lions and Tigers. You can also check out the Mom Project. But Bria, you're doing amazing things, and it's been such a pleasure having this conversation today. I think you've brought some really great tips and insight into this mission.
Thanks, Kelly. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.